Today on Spotlight, how some St. Louis teachers are involved in groundbreaking summer research at WashU. Plus, The Hill, a neighborhood that built St. Louis. Find out why its red brick still defines the city. And then historian Ben Wilson reveals how the world's greatest cities sparked some of the best ideas. But first, how an act of kindness has given a group of Cardinal fans something to look forward to at games. It's Sunday, and you're watching the multiple Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
In a city where Cardinal red is more than a color, one St. Louis season ticket holder dares to wear blue.
So I'm from Chicago, I love the Cubs, and so I always show up as a Cub fan for every game, no matter who they're playing, and try to do the best I can to make everybody have a good time.
St. Louis attorney Beth Boggs' presence at Busch Stadium isn't just about loyalty to her hometown team, it's about generosity. In fact, some have dubbed her the angel in the outfield.
So some years we've gotten jerseys for every single person in the section. This year we have noisemakers that are coming in from China for every single person in the section. It's just a fun thing to do.
Boggs has turned Section 168 in left field at Busch Stadium into something closer to a neighborhood block party than a ball game.
And we've had a lot of fun and developed a lot of great relationships over the years in the section.
She doesn't just cheer, she loads the stands with freebies until the rivalry feels more like a grand slam of goodwill, handing out snacks, drinks, and even Build-A-Bears to kids nearly every inning.
Yes, from Build-A-Bears.
So how did this all begin? During the 2011 World Series, Boggs and her late husband Darren were gifted 4 tickets. They already had their usual spots in Section 168, so they sold their premium tickets for $16,000. But they didn't cash it in for themselves. Instead, they decided to swing big for everyone else.
It's about the event and the people who are there who maybe don't have enough to bring their kid, but they're not going to get something. They're not going to get a baseball. One game we gave away bases from all the games. And so a kid coming to a game and getting a base, they're going to love baseball.
Beth needed a strong bullpen to help toss out her giveaways, so she recruited vendor A.J. Carter Johnson, who's become her MVP.
Pick one.
Did you ever think that that first game back in 2011 would lead to so many years later giving out free stuff to kids?
No, not at all. Not at all. But again, grateful for the blessing to be a vessel in this entire situation, and Beth has been generous enough to make sure that the right people are in place.
So I would say, if you could just get a case of peanuts and bring them down, and then throw them into the stands so that the fans have to stand up and cheer and get something. We can make it fun, make it interesting for everybody who's there. We'll get Build-A-Bears, and then they're all for kids, but there's a lot of parents that come down and say, I have a kid at home, and that's not what the experience is for. That's the kid at the game.
Any young fan who shows their appreciation gets an extra special surprise.
So the kids that have good manners and come down and say thank you get something signed by a player.
Plus, one lucky young fan is usually recruited to assist AJ. 9.5-year-old Blake Heitman is a veteran, helping out since he was a toddler.
It's the coolest thing that you've given away.
Probably some of the signed stuff that we give away.
The signed Ronaldo ball.
Yeah.
Section 168 has become its own community. Regulars get a kick out of watching newcomers light up when the Cubs-clad fan starts handing out the free merch. In 2015, the tables turned. The Boggs, who never had children of their own, took in their 3 young nieces one summer following the death of their mother. Fans in Section 168 and 167 rallied to give back to Beth and her late husband. Even the Cardinals honored the girls, welcoming them on the Jumbotron at Busch Stadium.
While they were here, the people in our section at the game adopted them as if they were their own family and taught them how to paint, taught them how to play guitar, taught them how to do all kinds of things. My niece chipped her tooth. The dentist in 168 fixed the tooth.
The generosity that defined Section 168 didn't stay in the stands. In 2020, as the pandemic shuttered stadiums and left vendors out of work, Beth extended that same spirit to her charity, Step It Up, bringing AJ on board to keep the mission alive.
She opened up her office, and I worked interimly there for a year and until they opened this back up and came back to vending. So it's just been a blessing.
What began as an effort to provide shoes and clothing for children pivoted during COVID into weekly food distributions. Backed by local bar associations and community partners, the nonprofit has since delivered millions of dollars worth of food to families in need.
During COVID, I cannot tell you how much food we're giving away.
Oh, okay.
And you know what skills this man has? Pallet skills to help deliver pallets of milk and pallets of eggs and pallets of food to North St. Louis.
Much like her work with Step It Up, Beth's giveaways at the ballpark turned simple acts of kindness into something far bigger than the game itself.
I love baseball. The people in my group love baseball. But we also love the St. Louis community, trying to combine the two and make things special for them.
Later on Spotlight, from Mark Twain to Maya Angelou, why Missouri inspires America's greatest writers.
Well,
that's like,
because it's kind of pale.
yeah.
Because we thought there was some undissolved tin chloride in it. But that's about the color you were expecting for the nanoparticles. Okay.
Kirsten Blaze spends her summer in a Washington University in St. Louis chemistry lab at the heart of cutting-edge scientific research.
Are you going to do an X-ray diffraction of that one again?
Yeah.
To compare it to last week with the octylamine?
The research can be hands-on for Blaze, but mostly she's observing, asking questions.
The olealamine compared to the octylamine, you're expecting that they're also going to be the same?
And taking notes, a lot of notes.
It's fascinating to me, the learning part. I love it.
Because she's a chemistry teacher at Villa Duchesne.
I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry, a master's degree in biochemistry. I teach chemistry to high school students at Villa Duchesne High School.
Just one, because of tartaric acid.
Sophomores and juniors, chemistry, honors chemistry, AP chemistry. Reminds me of being back in school myself or being a researcher myself.
And from this experience, she's building a lesson plan for high school students.
Start to think about, okay, how will this apply to my chemistry curriculum? How can I simplify this?
At WashU, Blaze is a teacher researcher. The Summer Teacher Researcher Program is part of WashU's Institute for School Partnership.
And I just think teachers have such an impact on students' career path. If they can actually talk with authority about what it is to be in a lab, then they can inspire more students.
For the summer of 2025, Blaze is one of 13 teacher researchers selected from the St. Louis area to work alongside WashU faculty. This is Blaze's third summer as a teacher researcher.
It has been a great honor. It's enjoyable for me. It's a very creative process.
And this year, Blaze spent week after week engaged with different research projects in the Sattler Research Group. Bryce Sattler is an associate professor of chemistry.
One of our primary focuses is on clean energy production. People have been working on this for decades, including the former chancellor here at Washington University, and I'm part of his academic lineage.
His research group uses light to image and control chemical transformations in inorganic nanostructures. Blaze's job is to work with the lab to build a translational lesson plan for high school students.
We had multiple discussions and talked about it, and then she's the one who decide what she thought would work best with them.
The first lesson plan I'm doing is about semiconductors as photocatalysts to clean up water, which is using semiconductors as photocatalysts to catalyze reactions that break down organic pollutants. I'll take them into this current research and go as far as I can go with them while staying in the high school curriculum, high school chemistry curriculum. But I'll be introducing them to semiconductors and what that is and how a semiconductor would work as a photocatalyst to break down this large organic molecule that can be found as a pollutant in water, etc.
When summer ends, Blaze's new work begins. She's field testing the lessons in labs at Villa Duchesne.
Once my students have done this lab for the first time, they give me feedback. They also know, since I've done this now a couple times, they know what I'm doing. I can pilot these lesson plans and use my students as guinea pigs this fall, and it'll be fun.
After the school year, the authentic lesson plan will be open source,
translating what they learned into something that could be used in classrooms across the country.
Educating that next generation. Reaching out to future students, reaching out to future researchers.
Is that why one of the reasons why you were trying this at a lower temperature?
while Blaze learns real scientific research from the WashU graduate and PhD students. They are learning from Blaze, the real chemistry teacher, too.
The crystals should be better.
Yeah.
More uniform, bigger.
If they're ever going to be professors themselves, or even if they're working in industry and they have to explain a process, it's a good practice for them to be explaining it to me. And I do think that some of them really enjoy explaining it and looking back at that big picture of why are they doing what they're doing. It may be small steps along the way, but sometimes we have big discoveries along the way.
Just 15 miles from downtown Collinsville, Illinois is well known for one food. No, it's not ketchup, it's horseradish. The Metro East grows 60% of the world's supply, outputting 10 to 12 million pounds of horseradish a year. The first weekend of each June, this root vegetable is celebrated at the International Horseradish Festival with food, music, and root tossing. History Spotlight, brought to you by HEC Media and the Missouri Historical Society.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jody Sowell, president of the Missouri Historical Society in St. Louis, and this is History Spotlight. The architecture of St. Louis is epitomized by red brick. Public historian Amanda Clark explains why the Hill neighborhood is responsible for the bricks that built St. Louis.
Ask most people today why they are coming to the Hill, and they'll quickly say the food. But if you ask them why did the Italian immigrants come here, whose food traditions that we enjoy now, and the answers are not quite so quick. The answer's all around us in the form of St. Louis's beautiful red bricks. The Hill neighborhood, as well as Dogtown nearby, that all sits on top of a huge clay deposit known as the Cheltenham Syncline. And that clay deposit gave rise to the clay industry here in St. Louis. So pit mining, where they would strip away the top of the ground, or people going down deep into the ground to mine clay, bring it back up, and then turn it into bricks and tile and clay. The Hill neighborhood, bound by Kings Highway, Hampton, Southwest, and Manchester Road, was originally known as Fairmont Heights. And Fairmont Heights was a community of mostly Germans and African Americans that had settled there to work in the clay mines and brick-making factories nearby. In the late 19th century, you start to see a wave of northern Italian immigrants that move into the area, starting to work in those jobs. And at first, it's mostly men living in boarding houses and makeshift housing. Over time, though, they start to bring family members to the area. They build churches, they build schools, they build permanent homes, and an Italian immigrant community starts to form. That same exact thing is happening not too far away, just to the north in the Dogtown neighborhood. Irish immigrants were moving to the area, working in the clay mines, and creating community there. Work could be found not just in the clay pits and the clay mines, but also in the brick-making factories that were all along Manchester Road. And these places were making high-quality bricks, clay tiles, clay pipes that were not just being used in St. Louis, but shipped out everywhere. And this was a huge industry that would sustain the area well into the early 20th century. There's still a few clues left on the landscape to this not-so-distant past. One is Barra Park. Barra Park now has soccer fields and a playground, but originally that was Laclede Christie Mine number 7. So you see that physical space left in the built environment. Also, you have businesses like Volpe Foods, right? They've been a staple on the Hill since 1902, but they got that early success because they were making these small sausages that were perfect for the miners to put in their pockets and take down into the mines. So when you head to the Hill to enjoy their famous food, say a little thanks to those immigrants that came before and pulled that clay out of the ground and built up this beautiful city of St. Louis.
Next week on History Spotlight, how St. Louis University helped shape the sport of football as we know it.
To learn more about the Missouri Historical Society, visit mohistory.org.
HEC Media has 6 YouTube channels, including science, history, art, authors, Black history, achievement, and culture, and all things St. Louis. Find your favorite, then scroll down to explore HEC Media's other partner channels, all on YouTube. For over 6,000 years, human history has been shaped by the rise of cities. British historian Ben Wilson's enlightening and entertaining book, Metropolis, A History of the City, Humankind's Greatest Invention, is a thrilling tour of over 24 cities and thousands of years of urban innovations, from medieval Baghdad to Belle Epoque Paris and 21st century megacities Lagos and Karachi. In today's interview, Wilson discusses his ode to the world's greatest cities, the challenges they've faced, and how cities drive civilization forward. Wilson is joined in conversation by Robert Lewis, Professor of Urban Planning and Development at St. Louis University and Director of the Community Planning Lab.
Ben, first of all, what's your background and motivation to write Metropolis?
Well, I've been a historian all my working life, author of several books. And I kind of got sort of brought to the city and urbanization because a lot of the subjects I studied involved cities, how cities worked. Lately in my career, became more interested in patterns of global trade and exchange, and centered around very dynamic urban environments. Particularly, I'm thinking about in the 19th century, the growth of big American cities, growth of cities like Shanghai. And so all that research took me to the idea of a global city, or the idea of a metropolis that has a kind of almost disproportionate power in its own time and is able to connect across globes, across societies, draw people to it, tell us bigger pictures, bigger stories about the particular times that they thrive and flourish in. So I took that as a starting point for Metropolis. And the more I dug, the more it took me back to the origins of cities. And I find cities personally fascinating places. And part of me wonders what makes them tick. How do we kind of survive this kind of concrete jungle? I was looking for things that were specific about cities in their times, but also there's kind of universal stories that those cities, whether it was ancient Rome or ancient Baghdad or London in the 17th century or whatever city it happened to be, what story it told us more widely about urbanization, why we got there, what makes a successful city, why they can be, places of incredible growth and flourishing of ideas. Other times they go into periods of decline. So that's what I wanted to pick out in the book, was to tell this story that I think, has its origin 7,000 years ago, but each city in turn that I write about has a kind of has a general, a universal theme that we can sort of help inform our thinking about cities today.
And cities, you point out time and again that there are also places of loneliness, anonymity, isolation, while at the same time being exciting places for collisions of ideas and inventions.
I wanted to sort of capture in this book this idea that cities are places of sensuality, enjoyment. They're places where people come together, bring food, bring entertainment, culture, all those kind of things make cities an enlivening place to be. I mean, this isn't simply a book about cities as cradles of power and inventiveness, that the city can bring people of different minds, different inclinations together to become places where you explore different things, like sexuality, for example. That's a big part of cities, to explore culture, to explore new ideas, whatever that might be. It is a great place where people can thrive, but it is, as you say, a daunting environment in which to survive. So a lot of the book subsequently, especially subsequent parts of the book, are about how we've kind of negotiated, especially as they've become larger. And when they become large, they become complex. They often come cut off. Compact cities through most of history were in quite close communion with their countryside, with their hinterlands. Suddenly, as cities become bigger, you cut people off, and you do become kind of lost in this kind of urban environment.
I hope those who are paying attention here realize your passion. It's astounding. It's not only in the way you speak about cities and their history and their evolution, but it's in the book. You read the book and you're captured because the passion is there. It's great storytelling as well.
To watch the full interview and find out about the first city in human history, head to hecmedia.org. For more St. Louis stories, subscribe to the HEC YouTube channel, Spotlight STL from HEC Media.
Missouri is vast, from the mighty Mississippi to the mountains, from rural farmland to the bustling cities of St. Louis and Kansas City. It is often the backdrop of stories by the most prolific writers who have ever put pen to paper.
Most of the adventures recorded in this book really occurred. One or two were experiences of my own, the rest those of boys who were schoolmates of mine.
From the past to the present, Mark Twain, born Samuel Clemens in 1835, moved to Hannibal, Missouri when he was 4. The small river town had a lasting impact on his life and work, dealing with issues of slavery, poverty, and class differences.
When I think of my wife, I always think of her head, the shape of it to begin with.
Gillian Flynn, whose Gone Girl was a New York Times bestseller, was born in Kansas City, Missouri in 1971. The book was later turned into a movie and shot in Cape Girardeau.
Some people weren't born here, but they felt so compelled to live here that the area just inspired them to build their home and build their family here. You know, some went off and lived elsewhere, but really felt the need to come back. And I think that passion of Missouri is what drives them all to write.
In honor of the Missouri Bicentennial, the Eugene Fieldhouse Library hosted a special exhibit, Missouri Writers, 200 Years of Talent.
One of the books that inspired us in this exhibit was Mark Twain Abroad, and it was and Eugene Field and Mark Twain Abroad, and it was about the two of them and their different travels, not necessarily with each other, but their travels at the same time period and how they viewed what they were doing. And that kind of showed us that there were connections here in Missouri, and we wanted to go from there.
Mark Twain took his Missouri roots up east, starting the Missouri Society of New York.
The sun's a setting.
Writers like Langston Hughes, born in Joplin, Missouri in 1902, continued that legacy. And in 1963, he was elected a trustee of the Missouri Society of New York. Often writing about the struggles of Black people, Hughes went on to become the poet laureate of Harlem.
What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun?
The exhibit featured the 12-volume set of its namesake, Eugene Field's work, and an original copy of this poem he wrote in perfect penmanship.
This one being a manuscript of Lover's Lane. Lover's Lane is a lane in St. Joe, Missouri, where Eugene would take his lovely wife, then when he was courting her, down. So Lover's Lane became quite the road in St. Joe. It's still there today. They still honor him there.
Winkin', blinkin', and nod one night, sailed off in a wooden shoe.
Born in St. Louis in 1850, Eugene Field was known as the children's poet. Another notable writer from St. Louis also wrote children's books. Kay Thompson, born Catherine Kitty Fink in 1909, wrote the series of books about Eloise, a 6-year-old girl that lived in the Plaza Hotel in New York. Thompson lived at the Plaza in the 1950s.
And baby Carrie left their little house in the big woods of Wisconsin.
Born in Wisconsin after the family moved to Mansfield, Missouri, Laura Ingalls Wilder began her career as a writer in 1894. She published Little House in the Big Woods in 1932, the first of her popular series. Today, her home in Mansfield is a museum.
I'd rather stay on this hot tin roof.
The great American playwright Tennessee Williams, known for his Pulitzer Prize-winning plays like Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, was born Thomas Lanier Williams in 1911 in Mississippi. But when he was 13, his family moved to St. Louis.
His background, his family life was challenging for him. He came from the South. They moved to St. Louis when he was a young boy. He was short. He was very Southern, and he was homosexual, and he was not accepted here.
It was here in the Central West End that Tennessee Williams grew into the artist that he would become. Down the street from his home, he worked as a writer in residence at a 500-seat theater, now known as the Link Auditorium.
So this is where Tennessee performed with a group called the Mummers in the late 30s. And his first full-length play was produced by them. They were a community theater group that was on the edgy side, bohemians. They all had day jobs.
Tennessee Williams struggled with mental illness and drug addiction. In 1983, he lost his battle and died of a drug overdose in New York City. His brother brought him back to St. Louis to be buried here at Calvary Cemetery.
The black female is assaulted in her tender years by all those common forces of nature at the same time that she is caught in the tripartite crossfire of masculine prejudice, white illogical hate, and black lack of power.
Award-winning poet and writer Maya Angelou was born in St. Louis in 1928, here at 3130 Hickory Street. Now registered as a St. Louis landmark, she lived here until she was 3 years old.
Buildings have a power to tell stories and to connect physically with people's imaginations in a unique way. And so, these bricks behind us were here. She knew these bricks. She knew these streets. And this is the home that sheltered her. So there is a very physical, tangible connection to this great American encompassed in this building.
At the time, this neighborhood was very segregated. St. Louis forced race-based housing restrictions until the late 1940s.
There weren't that many neighborhoods where African Americans were allowed to live, and this was one of them.
Many writers deal with their own pain on the page, in their world wrestling with words that become life-changing for them and their readers.
Whether they were always here or moved away, there was always something about Missouri that brought them back to their roots or what became their legacy.
Next week, every stone tells a story. And at the Bellefontaine Cemetery, those stories come to life thanks to local actors. Exile in Art, how St. Louis became home to one of the world's greatest Beckmann collections. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.